this video has been rather a long time coming. This is my salutations tribute video to a guy called Timothy J. Mckinnon. He wrote this book. This is a book which is a biography, you might like to say, on James Pulver. It's the second book that's been written on him. The first book was written by himself. It was an autobiography, but it only went up to the point where he defended his championship against BJ Penn. This book covers his return to... I'm not going to say it covers his return to the UFC, because what it really covers is a sort of spiritual development focusing on his time with MFS. So after reading this book, I got in contact with Tim Mckinnon. I got in contact with him quite separately from James Pulver, who I was already in contact with at the time. And we got talking, and I said to him, you know, what I would love to do is incorporate him into the tour for my American Dreams, the second American Dreams tour, which took place in 2009 in the end. Now, there was a bit of an issue, and that is that Amtrak doesn't quite run as holistically around the country as I thought, and it doesn't actually go to the Quad Cities at all. What you have to do is you have to go for a bus link between Galesburg, I believe, yes, and the Quad Cities, and it's by coach. That's fine, except for the fact that if you want to then return, your tickets, Amtrak will only issue to people inside the US. Now, obviously I wasn't going to be inside the US when I was booking the tickets, because they were booked at least 10 months in advance. So I needed somebody in the US to accept the tickets for me, so that when I got as far as the Quad Cities, I could then get the tickets from them and continue my journey. And Tim Mckinnon actually said, well, why don't you use my address? I will keep the tickets for you in a safe, and I shall give them to you when you arrive. Bear in mind that I had never actually met Tim before. As with a lot of people on my tours, I may know them quite well online, but I have never met them. And in fact, Tim Mckinnon and I had only swapped emails. We weren't people that had known each other for years on a forum. Of course, it was the only way to do the tour, so I thought, well, I'll do it, and let's just hope that it all turns out all right. So I turned up in Iowa, in the Iowan side of the Quad Cities, and I made contact there with Tim Mckinnon, and we met up. And it's fantastic, because the first thing he did was take me to MFS, and he took me to the Wednesday group. Now, the Wednesday group is a large part of what is included in this book, which is an expression or a way of explaining the spiritual developments that James Pulver may have gone through, certainly the groups of Christians that he was interacting with at the time, and what he said. So I went along to that. Obviously it's changed quite a lot from since the book was written, and as the book was also written in hindsight as well, so, you know, years possibly had gone past between the Wednesday group as it was described in the book and the Wednesday group as I went along. But Tim Mckinnon allowed me to come along for this session, and that was fantastic. And that was really, that along with the getting the documents from him to continue my tour, was all I had planned on doing. But after the Wednesday group, Tim said to me, why don't we go for lunch? So I thought, well, why not? So we went to the Granite City Grill, and as a complete surprise to me, we'd already ordered, we'd started eating. It was me, Tim and one of his friends, who I believe is also mentioned in the book. And there we were, eating and drinking, and Jens Pulver arrived himself. Now, that was a very special day for me, and Tim was very aware of, how big a fan I was. But he managed to keep it a complete surprise that I was actually, that he'd actually arranged for Jens to be there to meet me. It was an arranged thing. It wasn't, Jens happened to turn up. It was an arranged thing, which was just fantastic. It absolutely made the early part of that expedition. It really did. So I have great thanks for him. And he's been fantastic. I can't thank him enough, really. The funny thing, of course, was that after we had finished all this, in all the excitement, I firstly never got to get an interview with him, and secondly, I had to then phone him up, I think on the day of the departure, and say, oh, I forgot to get my tickets from you. Now, he'd already thought of that one, and he'd left the tickets with the people on the reception desk, I believe, down below. So after presenting me with some t-shirts, in fact I'm still wearing my Jens t-shirt now, and the t-shirts I wore straight away. I was wearing them in pictures and in films later on in the tour when I was visiting, the Hit Squad, and then Washington DC as well. So he presented me with that, and that of course was then the end of my part there, and I moved on. Why I haven't done a salutations video for him before, I don't know. It's been a very long time coming, and that possibly is really rather rude of me. But here it is now. I thought it important to say, and if you haven't got a copy, it's called Never, Jens Pulver and the Wednesday Group That Will Change the World. That's the name of the book. You ought to go and get it, because it's a fantastic read. It's more available than Pulver's actual first autobiography, which isn't easy to get hold of now, whereas I believe this book is in print and it's quite easy to get hold of. So get hold of it and read it, and there we are. That is my salutations tribute video for Timothy J.